Panoramas in wildlife photography. Is it possible? You know, you might think I'm crazy for suggesting this, but I think panoramas, taking two or more shots and stitching them together, works well for wildlife photography. I want you to take a look at a shot. I was out here in the park, this very same park, 2 days ago, and I want you to take a look at two shots I got of a deer. Now you might be asking yourself, why the heck did I take these weird framings? It's because I wanted to stitch them together in a panorama. Now, the reason why I didn't just take one shot is because I was absolutely too close to this deer to fit it in the frame. I was walking up a hill and it was just there. This happens a lot in this park. The deer, you know, they're roaming around. They're a little bit used to people, but not too much. They're still quite timid. And I was too close to fit it in the frame. And you know, I think a lot of you know that I like to use prime lenses. I only use prime lenses. 90% of my lenses are prime lenses. I don't typically use zooms. I never use a zoom for wildlife. I have in the past, but I don't now. Well, if you have a zoom, this isn't a problem. And even if you have a zoom lens, it can still be worth it to try this technique, because using it, you can get more pixels on your subject and more detail. But anyways, yeah, I couldn't fit this thing in the frame, this beautiful deer. And you know what? I couldn't move back either. I couldn't just zoom with my feet, because, you know, the problem with that is that if you encounter a situation like this, you don't want to move. The moment you move, you scare the animal, and I don't like scaring the animals. So what I did was I took two shots, and the way you do it in a situation like this is, well, I took one a little bit above and I moved my camera down, and I took another one and then I stitched them together. And you can get lots of free programs to do this, or do it in one of your, lots of photo editors do this as well. And I stitched them together and I got this shot. This is a stitch of the two shots together. And you can see there's a lot of space on the top and the bottom. Gives you a kind of cool squarish aspect ratio, a more square aspect ratio. Kind of an interesting look too. Here's another shot where I use this same technique. You know, I'll tell you something. It's surprisingly easy to do. As long as you take the shots really quickly, very steady hand, top, bottom, or sometimes left, right, but more likely to be top, bottom, then I found it to work. When an animal is still, it only needs to be still for 5 seconds, and animals can be quite still when they're sitting around. They don't want to necessarily move unnecessarily, because they're, you know, finding food in the wild is hard work. So what I found is that this technique really works 90% of the time. If you have 10 seconds to do it, a handheld shot, you just take two handheld shots. Now you can take more than two shots. It's possible. I think 4 would probably work, but you kind of have to be, because most of the time I'm not using a tripod, and it would be difficult, I think, a little bit to stitch together 4 shots really well, especially since it takes twice as long compared to taking 2 shots. Personally, I don't really find more than 2 shots to be necessary. But anyways, 2 shots is an ideal, and I use this, if you're using Darktable like me, I found this cool app on the App Store. It's called Panoramas Stitcher Mini. I'm not associated with them or anything. The free version there allows you to stitch up to 5 shots together. For wildlife, that's more than enough. I think even for landscape photography, personally for landscape photography, I never use panoramas, but for wildlife, it's funny, I actually use panoramas for wildlife more than I do it for landscape photography. But yeah, I really suggest you try this technique, because, you know, it's actually really easy to use. And if you're using a prime lens, it can help you not move around too much when you encounter a really cool and interesting situation. So can panoramas work for wildlife photography? Absolutely, they're awesome. Yeah, go and try it out. It's awesome.